Good. Okay. Hey, good morning. We welcome you guys to our online presentation of our State of the Schools. I appreciate you taking time to log in today. I know many of you are at work and are at home getting ready for a long weekend, so we appreciate you guys taking the time. Again, we're wanting to do this activity today because many of you reached out, Ms. Thomas, our communications director, and said, hey, I couldn't make the community events, but I would like to do it online. So this is us again trying to accommodate our families and trying to update everybody where we are in terms of our schools and in terms of what we're trying to do moving forward. If you have questions, I'll do my very best to answer them. I've been assured that the link here up under the TV works. If you have a QR code, just scan it and type in your question. There's also a way at the bottom of the YouTube link to submit a question. And that's one thing we've done at the community events is allow for questions at the end. I'm not scripting questions. If I don't know the question, just make sure when you ask a question that there's a way for me to call you back or contact, and I'll get the information and get it to you. So again, really appreciate you guys logging in. We're going to get started. The only difference in this presentation compared to the other presentations is as we went to each community, we did kind of highlight the report card for each individual community school. And also if there was any facility things that we were doing, we highlighted that in those particular areas. Obviously, with this being a district-wide thing, when we get to report card information, it will be just about Autauga County Schools report card for the previous year. Okay. You'll see me walking back and forth. We've had a little bit of technical difficulty with our clicker, but we're going to make it happen one way or the other. All right, so first thing here, as you know, in July I was hired as superintendent, and many of you reached out immediately and expressed some concerns that you had with the district. And the board and I have been trying to listen and accommodate as much as possible. The things on the board were the things we heard quite a bit. We heard a lot about managing student behavior. There was a feeling of a lack of transparency. Obviously, student safety is always important. That was on the minds of many of our people. We heard this one probably more than anything. The district did not do a good job of communicating, and whether that was a class, a school, a department, or the system. So communication was a big complaint that we had coming in. I hear a lot about our facilities and our processes being out of date and needing to be revamped. I've heard a lot about, hey, what do we expect for our parents and our students? And then lastly, how do we expand our opportunities for our students athletically, academically, extracurricular activities? What do we do to try to address those things? So those were a lot of the common problems that we were getting hit with. Now that we're, 8-9 months into it, I'm going to go over some of the things that we started doing to try to address some of those concerns. Prior to my hiring, the Board of Education adopted a new code of conduct that really clamped down, especially at the secondary level, with what was expected, what needed to be done at each school. We also tried to do some, we brought some uniform expectations, especially to our secondary schools, on how I wanted infractions handled. We've installed that, and honestly, discipline has been cut drastically this year at the secondary level. As a district, we implemented Parent Square and really have tried to go all in on trying to update our system with social media and online forums, and basically just trying to get into the digital age. We purchased about $500,000 in security equipment. We hired 11 security guards, and we've really tried to, with all governmental entities, whether that's local, city, state, federal, whether that's our local government representatives, we've tried to really partner with everybody to work together on improving our district. I think anybody will tell you that I feel like our partnerships are as strong as what they've ever been. And then lastly, I talked to our employees early on about what I expect from them, and we really do pride ourselves. I have 3 rules for our employees, and for myself too, and I would love to say I hit these rules every day. I fall short myself sometimes as well, but our goal should always be to treat people right, serve others, and take pride in doing your job. And that will continue to be our mantra as employees, as servants of you and your children. Obviously, some days we do a better job than others, but we're always going to try to hit those 3 goals. And if we can do that, we'll continue to improve. Some other things we did to try to address those concerns we talked about. We were able to fund about $10 million in facility improvements across the district. We established a centralized registration department that I'll spend a little more time on in just a minute. And we created in-district enrollment policies and out-of-district that should be coming up in a couple days at the board meeting to help our families be able to go to the schools that they feel like is best for the children. And really excited about the bus routing software that we purchased. This is a big deal. I hope it really helps smoothen out the beginning of next school year. This software is going to really change how we operate our transportation department. I'm a little nervous because, quite frankly, I thought this first year I would sit back and just observe. That's typically what you do when you take a new job. You want to see how things are going. That lasted about 3 weeks, and we began overhauling our processes. There's a lot of big things that we have overhauled that we hope you see as a family and as a community, because a lot of our procedures, a lot of our long-held way of doing things, that's what we've kind of tackled, and I hope it makes the next school year run a lot smoother. The last thing, we've reorganized our special education department. Elementary education's got to look different than secondary. We've been able to reorganize that department through listening to our teachers, listening to our students, and the way that's broken up now is there's a secondary coordinator, there's an elementary coordinator that are responsible for compartmentalizing both sides of special education in terms of elementary and secondary. So really good feedback so far on that. That was something we started about February, March. So that's a new change, but again, it's all designed to try to give our kids and our families the best educational experience possible. All right, so a little on the centralized registration. I know this is a lot of information up there, and we're going to post these presentations after this one today. We'll post them all. The main thing I need families to understand about centralized registration is, number one, why is it needed? As a principal in the district, I can tell you when I was at Marbury High School, there was numerous times where we would either accept or not accept a kid, but yet Marbury Middle or Pine Level did the opposite. Well, we're all reading the documents and we would have different interpretations. Centralized registration will be one place. Right now it's at Chapter 1 building where we currently are now. It will be at Chapter 1, and any new family starting this year, this upcoming year, any new family, instead of going to all the different schools to register your kids, you will come to this one centralized location. That will make us be more consistent with how we're handling paperwork. It will also help our families get assistance a lot quicker, because you're not dealing with 3 schools if you have 3 kids, or if you're like myself, I have 5 kids in the district. It just makes life a lot easier for the families. It also makes life a lot easier for our secretaries in the front office, because a lot of our schools, you have secretaries that are performing realistically 3 or 4 different jobs, and it's hard to be efficient when you're wearing so many different hats. So the centralized registration process should really help our families moving forward. We overhauled what we're accepting in terms of proof of residency. We had a big problem this past year and in many years prior with families abusing leases. We still accept leases, but you'll see on the policy now, we have option 1, option 2, option 3. You have to tie all your proofs of residency into each bucket. In other words, you can't take one thing from 1, one thing from 2, one thing from 3. That's how it was in the past. So there was a lot of forging, a lot of issues with that. It's not fair to our families who are here doing it the right way. So this is a change that'll be moving forward. That's why I've got to have 2, maybe 3 people doing it across the district, because that way we stay consistent and we're being fair to everybody. So that's a big change. If you're a returning family, look, I cannot emphasize this enough. We're not requiring it yet, but we're putting it out there. You've probably been getting a lot of emails or Parent Square messages from your base school saying, hey, it's time to register for next year. Guys, all that is the first day forms. If you're like me, if you're like my wife, you get tired of sitting at the kitchen table and doing all the forms that we require first day. We're still going to put those forms out at the beginning of the year next year for those who don't get it done. I would hope as we move forward as a district, families want to do it online and knock it out. I have 5 kids. My wife was able to knock out all that in 10 minutes the other day. So it definitely beats sitting there having to handwrite everything out. So again, I hope you see this as a family as you're watching. That's a massive undertaking too. It's never been done in our district. There's a lot of people that think, hey, it's going to be a problem. We can't be afraid to try new things out of the fear of thinking it's going to fall apart. We have to push that envelope to try to do what we got to do to make it better for our families. So that's another change. In-district enrollment policy. Okay. I've had a lot of questions on this. I need to make sure, I'm not going to go through every little bullet. Again, we're going to post this. Here's the big items on that. Number one, this is a response to Governor Ivey's Choose Act. Okay, you've seen it all over the news now. When I was hired in July, we were told at the first meeting I went to by the state superintendent, hey guys, if you don't have an in-district policy on your books, you need to have that because it's coming from the state legislature. Personally, and I don't mean this ugly, personally, I would much rather write my policy than rely on, somebody from outside the county, the State Department, whoever, to write our policy. So all we did was take our current hardship procedures, because it wasn't really a policy, our hardship procedure. We took that, put it in writing. That's literally it. Now, the main things that families been asking, well, so I can go where I want to. Well, no, as many of you that's been in the county forever know, a lot of our facilities, some of the schools aren't going to be able to hold a lot of kids. Take Prattville Primary, for example. They're already at max capacity with pre-K being there. Now, they can take 20 to 30 kids, but as far as 100 kids going to Prattville Primary, it's just not feasible. So the way that process will work, there are some discipline requirements in that policy. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but there's some discipline requirements. You can't have more than one major infraction. You cannot be chronically absent and be able to transfer. We have to keep in mind that if something's not working at one school, I can't let that problem go to another school. And by that problem, I mean the chronic absenteeism or whatever. So we have to have some parameters in place. That's why the policy is written the way it is. Now, that being said, here's the prime example. Let's say 100 people go to the portal and they want to transfer to Prattville Primary. And let's say internally we say there's 25 seats available. All we will do at that time is run it just like our pre-K program. There'll be a lottery, we'll go through it, we'll call the parents who get picked. If you don't get picked, there'll be a waiting list, and we'll just work through that process. That's literally it. Now, I know there's going to be some that want to transfer that don't get selected. I would just encourage you to be patient. We'll work through that process. Maybe it's the next year. Now, once you get assigned to that school, as long as your child is in compliance with those policies, whether it's discipline or attendance, that'll become their base school. You don't have to redo this every year. That is a change from the hardship. Our hardship process, they had to reapply every year, and it was the same families over and over and over that were having to do a lot of needless paperwork. So I hope that clarifies some of the issues with the in-district transfer. We do think it's a step in the right direction. What I have told our principals is, whether we like it or not, the first place you are competing with is schools in this district. Our principals have to make their school the place that people want to come to. And I think competition is a good thing. We just got to be smart with how we do that. Out-of-district enrollment is literally the same thing. I'm going to bring this policy to the board, or this suggestion to the board Tuesday night. This is not official. This is just public discussion on it. But I would see it more than likely being exactly the same as as the in-district transfer. Now, there will be a monetary cost for the families per kid. It's not right for our taxpayers to pay property tax and to allow kids from surrounding counties to be able to come in and not have any cost in it. Really, that's the only change. Now, out of district will not apply until all in-district requests have been processed and looked at. So the way I see this happening is, if there's a school that has 7 seats available and there's some kids that want to come to our system and they qualify, we'll probably reach out to those families and say, hey, these are the schools we have open if you're interested. The reason we're doing all this is I have to figure out a way to stabilize our enrollment numbers. And I'll get to this in a minute on the state slide presentation. But when you're at the mercy of the state allocation for teacher units, the way you're trying to plan out teacher units is just too up and down. I mean, it varies too much. Rough numbers, if you lose 20 kids, or if a class size is 20 kids less than the year before, that's a teacher unit. And with our funding issues, we are completely relying on state funds or state units for that. So I'll get into that in a little more, but that's what we're trying to do, is stabilize those numbers at the base schools so that we can project out better for our principals so they can start building programs in their schools. All right, this is the report card for the district. It's kind of, it's a little frustrating, not gonna lie to you. Our academic achievement went up, our academic growth stayed the same. Graduation rate did decrease somewhat, by about 4.5 points. Our CCR rate increased. Our chronic absenteeism barely increased by less than 1%. And we were more proficient in EL. And yet, with all those increases, we still decreased by 1 point. The reason for that is different one of these categories are weighted differently. So the one that has really hurt us, and the one that our parents have been the most frustrated with us about, is the chronic absenteeism. All right, so what chronic absenteeism means is if a child is absent for 18 days or more, that child is deemed chronically absent. The State Department does not care if they're excused or unexcused. It's all in the same pot. So prior to my hiring, the board did lessen our parent notes. The reason, though, that parents need to understand that, the reason that occurred is previously it was 10 parent notes. Well, you would have 10 parent notes, and then you would have a couple of doctor visits. Well, you're up to 18 notes. Well, again, the state's dinging us. They cited us as, you've got to improve your chronic absenteeism. So we did lower that parent note number to 7. We are seeing positive effects from that. We are looking at maybe adjusting that a little more this upcoming year. But I need parents to understand that chronic absenteeism is a problem. If a kid's missing 18 days of school, it is very difficult for them to succeed. Some kids can, I'll be the first to admit that. But we gotta have our kids here. And that's one reason why our score did go down a little bit. And again, this is an area of improvement that the State Department has literally listed for us. Hey, this is an area where y'all need to improve. So we're working on improving the other areas. Graduation rate, I'm going to tell you preliminary numbers. I feel better about that next year. Our ACT scores have started to come in. I feel good where we're at. I think our report card will reflect positive change this past year. But again, it gets down to what area is weighted the largest and which area do we improve in more than the other. So I like where we're at. We just got to keep improving. The Literacy Act. We have said this at every community meeting. Our schools are doing a really good job of getting this information out. Basically, this is a state requirement, okay? And what I need parents to understand, and I'm not going to go over every little bullet, but there is a possibility, I'm going to go to the next slide. There is a possibility, per the Alabama State Department of Education, if a student does not meet the above requirements, then they must be retained. A student that passes all of their classes could be retained per the law. Now, there's a lot of things above here that allow some grace, okay? If the student has a portfolio that shows that they are at grade level, they just didn't score well enough on the standardized test, okay? We have ways we can do it. However, all that's going to be reviewed. So I do dread coming up very soon when we get to our final report card for our students. I really hope that our students that all pass their classes also hit their marks so they can move forward. Just understand, we've really put this out for our parents that there is a possibility that a kid could pass all their classes and still be retained in accordance to the law. We're trying to do everything we can to prevent that from happening, okay? That's the main thing we've been really harping on with our parents, is make sure they understand the Literacy Act. The Numeracy Act, those requirements are not there yet. The main thing that I just want you to know, in K through 5, kindergarten through 5, if a school's scores are below a certain threshold, those schools have math coaches. The reason that's not like at every school, because there's qualifying scores that have to be in place. I hope maybe as we move forward, we have seen a really good improvement at the schools that have the math coaches. On a day-to-day instruction level, our teachers have really enjoyed it. I hope maybe that's something we can grow, regardless of whether it's part of the Numeracy Act or not. But again, main thing on the Numeracy Act is there's nothing there as far as holding back kids at the moment. As far as I know, there's nothing next year, but I would not be surprised if that act does not have some teeth to it as we move forward as well. But yeah, all right. This is another big change coming for the class of 2026. That is this year's sophomores. They have to be college and career ready, okay? When the class of 2026 gets to the end of their high school career, if they have not met a CCR indicator, then, or if they have not earned a CCR, then they will not be allowed to graduate. So, different marks on that. There's some ACT scores they got to hit. Again, I'm not going to read every bullet. I want y'all to be able to review this. I'm sure many of you have questions, and I'm trying to save some time to answer questions. But English, they got to have 18, reading 22, math 22, science 23. AP exams, they can qualify that way. They can qualify through dual enrollment. A lot of our kids get their CCR when we take the work keys, if they get a silver level or higher. The biggest change, and this is what I spent a little time on in the community meetings, I need families to understand that if a child is taking career tech classes, there's also another way they can get their CCR if they take 3 classes in the same pathway and they make higher than a 70. So here's what I see coming for my class of 26. This past year as a sophomore, they may have taken a career tech class that maybe they didn't want to take. That's just where the schedule fell. Well, now, if they're a child that's the best way that they can qualify, or if that's something that they want to do in life after high school, well, now you really need to take the second class of that as a junior. And then senior year, you need to take a third class because, again, that gets you your CCR. Kids change their minds. I mean, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. I thought I was going to be an anesthesiologist. You know, I changed 10 times through high school and college. I expect kids to change their minds. So maybe they want to be a welder and they get through the second welding class and go, you know what, I don't want to do that. I want to be a fireman. Well, this path is going to force us to have to really encourage families to go ahead and finish that pathway, even if they don't want to take those classes as we move forward, for some students. So again, I'm just trying to really educate parents on understanding this is not a problem this year, but it may be a problem moving forward for some of our families in 2026. So just keep all that in mind. We are making some adjustments with what we're offering on each class, or on each campus, to try to give our kids an easier path to a CCR. There's some ways a business class can get you a CCR. There's easy pathways if your child takes an ag class. So as a district, I'm looking at what can we put on each campus that we can run all of our kids through and get that CCR out of the way so the kids can really focus on what they want to do. Obviously, that leads to teacher units and funding and all that other stuff, but we are working on that. We've been working on it. So I feel good where we're at. I just need to make sure parents understand what's coming from the State Department. All right, so now we shift to discussing our financial situation. Currently, based on the data from the Alabama Association of School Boards, the AASB ranks school districts on funding based on total funding. I'm not a big proponent of talking about just one component of funding. I think you got to look at the whole picture. I think that's the fairest way of doing it. It's easy to single out where you're at with one thing. Let's talk about the whole picture, because people need to understand that, you know, we do run a $111 million budget, and on the surface, that's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. But the point of these meetings has also been to kind of, number one, like the first slide we talked about, our parents have screamed, hey, I want you to be transparent. You're going to see here in a minute that we're being as transparent as we can be. But out of that ranking, we rank 128th out of 138 in all of the school systems in Alabama. That takes all 3 sources of funding. That averages about $10,300 per student, okay? On average, that's $1,750 less than the state average. So, we're 128 out of 138. We're spending about 10 grand per student. Everybody else in the state, the average in the state is 12,000. So you go, well, that's not that big of a difference. Well, we have 9,000 kids, 9,000 times 2,000. You can see in a hurry that there's a lot of things we could do differently if we were just average funded. So anyway, let me move forward. This is a breakdown of per pupil expense on where the money goes across the district. It also shows our enrollment for all the schools. Again, all this will be public information. You're more than welcome to review it. And I've said this at every community meeting. Autauga is currently funded at about it's a little more than $16,000 per student. At the lowest end, you have Prattville High School that is funded at about $7,700 per student. Now, that's a little misleading because, number one, your rural schools are going to have more federal dollars that come in. Number two, the enrollment numbers in Autauga and Billingsley, to keep the schools open and running, you have to supplement teacher units because they don't earn enough teacher units to match what the needs are for the school. So that's why you see the funding much higher for Autauga and Billingsley and somewhat Marbury High School than you do the other schools. Now, Marbury's pretty close with the rest of them. Like you see here, Prattville Kindergarten, Prattville Primary, they're at 10. Marbury's at maybe 10-2. Billingsley's roughly about 11. And then, like I said, Autauga is exponentially higher than everyone else. But again, their enrollment numbers are lower, so you got to supplement. Teacher units to be able to meet the needs of the students out there. So we've spent a little time on that diagram per community, really breaking down where that number falls in for their particular community. All right, the district's per pupil revenues. What I mean by that is, okay, if I look at, there's 138 systems. If we were 92nd overall, we'd be pretty good. That's where we are in terms of state dollars. We're 108th in local and 101st in federal. Now, I get asked a lot, why, I guess because I'm a former coach, everybody asks me about athletic facilities. Why are our facilities in the shape they're in? Well, districts across the state have a lot of money, local money, that they can use to improve things. Why don't we have performing arts centers? Again, when you're starting to specialize what you can offer at the local level, you have to use local dollars to be able to do that. And I'm going to break that down for you in just a second. I'm more concerned with, we have to figure out a way to stabilize our staff needs across this county. We're losing way too many good people. And as you know, in your place of employment, when a great employee walks out, the chances of you being able to replace that employee with somebody as good or better is slim to none. I mean, it's very difficult right now in today's hiring market. So we're going to spend a little time here. I'm going to show you each level, okay? This pie chart represents the total funding we have, okay? So 61% is state dollars, okay? So right here, that's $68,318,000, roughly. Federal dollars is here. It's about 16% of our budget. Local is about 21% or 22% of our budget. All total, we're on $111,643,600. Now again, I'll be the first to admit that number is substantial, right? Like that's a big number. However, I need people to make sure I need everybody to understand, I'm gonna go back to this. State dollars is mainly what we receive in teacher units, right? So if the state gives us 68 million, not all 68 million, but a majority of it goes toward staff, okay? Which is completely reliant upon the enrollment numbers from the previous year. That's a whole nother argument, but it makes it very tough, okay? Federal dollars, yes, we receive money for, I've used this example at every location, homelessness. If we get, say, I don't know, $1 million for the homeless program, well, obviously, we're going to use that money for our kids that are homeless. That's what it's for. Well, let's say we only need 100,000 of it. In the business world, you would meet the needs, and then you would use the money elsewhere. When money comes in from the state or federal governments, if it is earmarked for something, you have to use it for those projects or for those programs or for that reasoning, okay? Here very soon, I'm going to start several building projects, okay? That's coming from state dollars that I can use for that, one-time money. And I'll get to that a little more later, but I just need families to understand, if it was 111 million and you could use it however you needed to solve the needs, totally different conversation, totally different conversation. The only pot of money that you have that ability is the local dollars, okay? Here's the problem with that. Of 20 million local revenue, in local revenue, about half of it comes from property tax, the other half roughly comes from sales tax and other taxes, okay? Now, we've been doing this at every location, so I'll do it here too, okay? So we basically have $20 million. That's what this money is representing, right? $20 million. You roughly have $20 million to use as you see fit. Well, if we go back and we look at what we got for this state, $68 million. Part of state law is each district, or each district has to supply 10 mil match to the state program. So, to get the 68, we have to pay in our budget this year, $9,380,970. Now, obviously, there's no world where we're not going to pay that because we're paying 9 to get 68. But that has to come out of your local money, right? So we have 20 million, but I've got to give up 9. Again, this is where you get this done, right? So of the 20, we're going to take 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. Now, state capital funds match. The state gives you some money to use on capital improvement stuff, but you got to match some of that. Our budget is $470,000. I'm gonna jump here. Sped maintenance of effort. Again, to get money, you have to match some money. There's some things we have to do legally that comes out of local. Both of those, it's about $880,000. I'm gonna say $1 million, right? Because I did the 9 a minute ago, I left the 380 out there as well. Okay. So we've paid our state. We've paid SPED, we've paid state capital funds. Now we got to budget in what we call pass-through money for our CMP salaries, benefits, basically the cost. Any CMP program, for the most part, you have to help that program. CMP cannot make a ton of money. It's actually in their regulations on how much money they can have on hand. The CEP, the free lunch program and breakfast program we started this year, overwhelmingly, people have enjoyed it. Again, I've got 5 kids. I've enjoyed not having to put money on their lunch ticket every week. I'm not 100% sure how that plays out moving forward. We're going to do the program again. We're going to have free lunch again next year. But just to give you an idea of what we're looking at, when we first signed on that program beginning of the year, there were some guidelines. We were well within those guidelines. Well, as the program evolves and as more programs get on it, or schools get on it, the guidelines they recommend kind of change, and I don't know if I would have signed up for it with what we found out moving forward. Now, again, I'm all in on it. It's been a great help for our families. Kids need to eat, right? We want to make sure they're getting what they need. So we'll continue it, but in my budget, we have to budget for worst case. And to meet those needs, I've got a budget, $2,351,175. So again, for our case, I'm gonna say that's 2. That goes here, okay? Career Tech match, again, same thing. To offer Career Tech classes, there's things you got to do. There are portions of pre-K and the Alabama Reading Initiative that we have to contribute money for. One of the biggest myths in education right now is, well, pre-K is all funded. It's not. I mean, we have to contribute money to that. That comes out of the general fund. So again, for that program, it's about $1 million. It's 1.229287. Okay, so there's another $1 million gone. Then utilities. All right, I've been in the district now 18 years. When I first started coaching, because money was very, very tight, and I remember it. Each individual sport, if you had a baseball field, you had a power meter on that field. We had to pay the power bills. There was really no other way of doing it. Well, when I say we, I really mean we had to do fundraisers, and our parents had to help contribute to pay the power bill. The district in those years, I give the previous superintendents and board members really a lot of credit. They realized that, hey, we need to shift away from that, and the district now pays the utilities for our sports, our band, or anything on those campuses. Our district pays for it. Now, the flip side of that is, it's $3,600,000. So I'm gonna say 4. Okay. So the question I keep getting is why don't we have the same facilities as Auburn? Or why are we losing people? Or why is the paint flaking off the ceiling at Prattville Primary School? Or why do our bathrooms look the way they do? Well, guys, I'm going to defend every superintendent and every board member before us. I've got to say really good things about our board. They're awesome. I work with them every day. We all share the same vision. But I'm going to defend everybody before too, because I've been here all my life. This is the same problem we've always had. The biggest delayment or delaying of the problem has been, quite frankly, when COVID occurred and the federal government sent all this ESSER money, COVID money. We have been able to stockpile some money because we've been using ESSER funds for anything that we possibly could. But previous administrations and what we're forecasting moving forward, this is what you have left from your local dollars. Now, again, I'm about to be starting several projects pending board approval. You're going to see a lot of projects starting in the next 2 months. And I can hear it now. Well, why are you starting projects and y'all are asking for a tax increase? I am using ESSER dollars and I am using state allowable dollars to fix long-term facility issues that we've always had. I don't know if this money's at the state level. They'll tell you, we don't know if it's coming back after next year. So where I could use it in other areas, I'm tired of seeing what our kids are, I'm tired of seeing what our teachers and students are trying to learn in every day. So if that means, replacing floors, if that means bathroom remodeling, if that means painting the ceilings in schools, if that means looking at possible athletic improvements or fine art improvements, I've got a list of items in my office, and I'm literally going to take a marker and I'm going to check off as many of these projects as I can, because this may be our last opportunity to fix some of these. And the reason I say that is I got to explain what this $3 million is currently paying for. All right, I'm saying 3. It's really about 2.5 million that's left. The remaining revenues have to fund all other expenses, okay? And this is the dilemma that previous boards and previous superintendents were in, okay? I understand it much better now than I did as a principal. This is why we have done, it is absolutely incredible how good of a job our teachers, principals, parents, previous boards, previous superintendents. It's amazing that our system is as good as it is and as strong as it is based on what everybody was trying to do. I will defend them every single time, because what I'm about to show you with what's left, there's not a lot left. Debt payments. Okay, we have $48.8 million in debt. That's not a bad thing. As you know, we're building a new private kindergarten. That's about 30 of the 48.8. There was roofing projects and other loans that we had to get done previously when you have roofs leaking. And again, you don't have the money to just pay for the issues. You have to go get a loan to pay for issues, right? But these payments come out of this money, okay? Athletic supplements, regular building maintenance, office supplies, custodial supplies, professional development. Now, let me say this. Do you get state money for professional development? Yes, you do. You don't get enough, but you get some. Do you get money where you can use some of the state money for custodial supplies, office supplies, building maintenance? Yes, you do. But anything that you have to go above and beyond comes out of your local money, which ties me back to what I said a minute ago. I get a lot of questions, well, why don't we have this and why don't we have that? It's got to come out of your local money, right? If you don't have the ability to take out more loans, then how can you go get different projects started? You either have to pay for them out of the money you have, or you got to go get a loan to get them to pay for them in the future. That's our predicament that we're in. So when I came in, I promised the people that I would go through every program, every dollar, and we've done that. We've been able to find some things that we could use better. The online forums are one of those programs. We were paying for it. It's there. Let's use what we got. Let's make it happen. We've been able to cut some things. There's been positions that I've not rehired. There's been some restructuring. There's been some debt savings. Huge shout out to our legislature members, Senator Chambliss, Representative Smith, Starnes, and Representative Lawrence. They were able to help us get a grant where we're working on paying down some of our debt. We're doing everything we can with what we have, right? This analysis I asked from Rice Advisory Group is one of the ways I'm showing you we were trying to be transparent. So I'm looking at these facilities when I first get here. I've been here all my life. I'm like, we've got to do something. And I met with some groups, met with some contractors, met with a lot of people. But when I was sitting down with my CSFO, Ms. Poe, we're like, I don't know how we're going to pay for it. Like, it's got to come out of this. I don't know how we're going to pay for it. So I brought in an independent group, Rice Advisory, and I said, hey, I want you to do a complete audit. Just go through it. Tell us if we're right. Tell us if we're wrong. What do you do? Now, it's very important that the public understands Rice Advisory is the main group that's got to sign off on your bond when it goes to the state. So, you know, they're the ones telling the State Department, yes, this system can pay back the bonds, or no, they can't. So I felt like that was a very neutral party to look at our economic situation. I provided a copy of the letter that he sent, okay? I had two questions for him. I said, number one, can we take out more loans? Number two, is it as bad as I think it is? All right, so first question, okay? This is his conclusion, and it's in big letters here, and then if you want to see the actual letter with the dates, with everything, here it is, okay? Rice Advisory said, the audit indicates that the district is, quote, currently running on a very tight budget, meaning existing revenues are just enough to cover expenses. In order to increase the operating efficiency of the system, either revenues need to be generated or expenses need to be cut. A growth in revenues would include an increase in ad valorem taxes, and a cut in expenses might include, but not be limited to, a decrease in existing services offered, layoffs, and possibly the closing of schools. So, the rumor going around is I'm closing all these schools. That is not the case, okay? What I have been telling everybody at these meetings is this. We are fine financially this year. I want to say we have about 23, 24 million in our general fund, which is obviously more than 3. The problem is when we project out, because we're losing ESSER funding, right? You got to have all that money, the COVID money, you got to have it spent. Next year, a lot of those costs that we've been able to save our money with, like janitorial supplies, now it has to come out of our general fund. I'm seeing the numbers we spent on it before. That's what I can't get everybody to quite understand. I'm not looking at what we have. I'm trying to say, okay, pre-COVID, what did we spend, right? Post-COVID, we all know that the cost of goods in 2019, 2020 was significantly less than they are right now. So Rice Advisory is literally saying, and he said this to me, you're okay next year, but if you don't get additional revenue in 25, 26, it's going to be bad. So the whole myth of, or not myth, the discussion of closing schools and all, that came from, I'm going around into these places, different communities, and I'm saying, all right guys, ask me your questions. And somebody asked, hey, are you closing schools? I said, well, I don't have any plans on it. I can prove with the projects we're doing across the district and going to start moving forward, we're going to go all in on trying to keep everybody open. However, if there's not additional funding and a financial advisor is saying either increase your revenue, ad valorem, or decrease expenses, that's layoffs, closing of schools, I've got to make a decision. So we thought we had a technical difficulty there. So one last thing, I want to make sure I say this too. When I began my administration career, I was at Prattville High School, and I was over the janitorial fund. Okay, the way that was done, we all had different funds we were responsible for. And I can 100% testify this. At one of the community meetings, they said, is it true y'all used to have to ration toilet paper? Yes, ma'am, it is. 100%, because I was the guy that was over the fund. That was 7, 8 years ago. So I literally had to meet with my custodians, who were phenomenal, and said, look, in this bathroom, you have to have toilet paper in every other stall. That was to get us through to the end of the month. The public does not know that. That's true. That I lived it. That is the truth. That is 100% the truth. I'm very concerned knowing what that funding was prior to COVID, and I'm very concerned what it looks like after COVID. So Rice Advisory gave us that update. I'm sorry I didn't finish that. He said, can the Board of Education access the bond market currently? He said, yes. Yes, you do qualify to take out additional loans. And he goes into coverage and all that stuff. But long story short is, yes, we do qualify. He followed it up with this. Should, and he's got it underlined, should Autauga Board of Education access the bond market currently? Here's his answer. Well, he's talking about leverage and all that. The answer is no. The answer is no. He literally puts it in writing. Again, please access this. Once we put it online, you can see it for yourself. An individual, he said, Mr. Woodfin, you guys are the guy that qualifies for a bigger house. You can go get the loan, but to get the bigger house, you are not going to be able to go out to eat. You're not going to be able to have a car payment. You're not going to be able to have a boat payment, but you can get the bigger house. I said, well, what do you think that means for us? He goes, what that means for you is, yes, you can go get a loan and you can build some wings and you can fix some facilities. I don't know how you're going to make payroll. I don't know how you're going to put toilet paper in the bathrooms. That's our reality. So his advice is, without an increase in revenue, I cannot go get bonds. Guys, I don't claim to be an expert on everything. He's an expert in that market. So if he's telling me don't go get bonds unless you get additional revenue, that's where I'm at with it. We have to get our debt down. Basically, it boils down to this. Our debt level, even though it's not bad in terms of overall budget and all, it's at the max that we are currently able to fund and be able to hit all our other needs. I'm not going to push this number high and leave it for somebody else to fix. I'm not doing that. Okay. So anyway, as you've seen on the news, we did ask for a $7 million increase. I've had a lot of questions. How did you get to 7? Is 7 enough? Look, 7 is not enough if we want to go in and build all these new buildings and all that. It's not. Guys, I've got to earn the trust of the public. And I hope the public sees that we did not ask for an exorbitant amount of money. How did I come up with 7? 7 would be, well, if it's fully funded at 7 meals the way we have it, would be about $1 million, okay, per meal. So it'd be about $7 million. I am literally looking at that going, if I can shift half of it to my employee side, half of it to debt and facility side, I think we're okay. Let me rephrase that. I know we'll be much better than what we are right now, okay? Does it solve all our problems? No. Does it allow for a new high school and a new middle school at Marbury and a brand new big gym at Autauga and a new wing at Billingsley? No, it don't. Okay, it allows us, I'm going to say this as plainly as I can, 7 meals allows us to solidify where we are. It allows me to stay where we are. It allows us to get our employees a little better off so that maybe we'll quit losing our employees. It gives me a little wiggle room in case I have a disaster hit where I could access the bond market, but I'm telling you, I'm probably still not. I'm going to pay down debt. That's what that 7 number does, if it's 7 full meals, okay? That's what this slide's talking about, and I've got asked numerous times, what would you do with 7 meals? Guys, the hardest thing in our district right now is our principals are in a no-win situation. We want them to grow. We want the instructional coaches. We want literacy and math at the elementary levels. We want electives at all levels. Here's the reality. When you're completely relying upon what the state gives you, and those numbers are from the previous year, you cannot grow programs. What I want to have happen is we set aside basically about $1 million, maybe 2, and we say, okay, this is our local teacher unit fund. We set that aside. We may not use all that money every year. It depends on what those needs are. What does that do? Well, if a school's natural fluctuation, because that happens, you're going to have some years where it goes up and some years where it goes down. Instead of every 20 kids, you lose a unit as a school, let's say that enrollment goes down 20 kids. Well, we just pull one of these local teacher units out of this pot. Principal, don't worry about it. You don't have to cut a good teacher this year. We're going to float you this year with this fund. Now, the following year, you're going to recoup that unit. That's what's crazy about it all. Everything's a year in behind. So I want a pot of local teacher units that we can start sending to these schools. If I get a situation, and we see this a lot in kindergarten, we open up, 2 weeks later, you'll have an influx of kids. Well, now the class sizes are huge. Well, how do you fix that? Well, again, we're going off of what we're given by the state. If I have a local unit fund that I could go, okay, private kindergarten, now we picked up 100 kids, let me go send 5 teachers, even if it's at the start of the school year, let's go hire 5 teachers. It's coming out of this pot over here. What does it do on the secondary level? On the secondary level, now you can grow programs. Now you can grow electives. Now you can, honestly, you can start to cut down class size a little bit and really increase the rigor of your upper level classes, because now you don't have to have 30 in a class, maybe it's 22. That's a big difference. It's a huge difference. I've said this story at everything, and I'm telling you, I am going to make it my mission, even if the tax does not work. The days of principals having to come into a unit meeting with us, I used to dread them. They're awful. I'll never forget one year, I lost a unit because I lost like 10, 15 kids. And I'm like, man, I don't really understand how I lost a unit, but okay, I got to figure it out. My decision at that time was cut softball or cut art, because at that time, that was about all the non-tenure teachers I had. And I'm not being ugly here. We're in Central Alabama. Softball is very important. Art is too. Both are very important. And it killed me. I had to cut our art program. Now, I'm very proud to say this. It took me 2 years, but I got our art program back as a principal. And that's a whole other story. But the things and the hoops I had to jump through to work enrollment numbers to justify getting my unit back. That's the world that our principals live in. So, I got to ask at Billings, like, hey, why don't we have a band? Well, how can you have a band if the first unit that's going to get cut is the one you just started the year before? So what I mean by that is, if you're completely relying on these state units, and you have the next year you lose enrollment, you can't cut a tenured teacher, right? It's law. You got to cut the non-tenured. Well, you're going to cut the ones that, quite frankly, are usually the newest ones. Well, in 9 times out of 10, that's going to be the new program that you just started. So how can you grow a program if you're always in the back of your mind as a principal having to think about cutting it because maybe my enrollment went down? That's why I tie back into the in-district, out-of-district enrollment. Those are ways that we can really soften the blow of fluctuations of our numbers, okay? So if we see that a school lost 40 kids, but we can allow some to come in from out of district to keep that number the same, well, now you've protected that enrollment at that school. And again, protect the teachers' jobs. So what does this look like, okay? If we are able to get the $7 million that's at the legislature right now, if it comes out of the legislature and you guys are able to vote on it, guys, we go from 128 to 114th. I say that with a smile on my face because, guys, I'm not asking to be Hoover. I'm not asking to be Auburn. I'm asking people to give us a chance to show you that if you allow us to give it a little flexibility, we will flip these schools. We will give our people what they need. Now, right now, again, I do not write the bills. We requested 7 mills. It's the legislature. Those guys are doing a great job trying to work it all through. I have no idea what it looks like when it comes out or if it comes out. But if it's as presented, there's 7 mills, again, about $1 million per, instead of 3, right? What that essentially does, instead of 3, it gives us 10, right? So we would have 10 to play with at the end. Okay. I have some goals here that I'd like to do. I just talked about this, our local teacher units. I know I spent a lot of time on that, but guys, that's a major need. I would like to increase the number of security guards we have across the district. technical deal, we're good?
Go to the next slide.
Yeah, sorry. I would like to increase our security guards. I was able to do that at Prattville High School and Prattville Junior High. We've seen a significant increase. That's been a really good thing for those campuses. I would like to be able to do that across the district. I took a lot of heat at Christmas time because I didn't do an employee bonus. The previous years we had received a bonus. The reason I didn't do that is, number one, when me and Ms. Poe met on it, there was a memo that came up in our audit we have where the state said, hey, you can't use ESSER funds to do that this year. Now, my understanding is in years before you could, but this year we couldn't. Well, what does that mean for us? Well, that was $592,000 that I was going to pay out of the general fund. And again, I'll be the first to admit I'm very conservative with money. I'm trying to make sure when we get out of this year that we're okay. So I would like to be able to have a bonus system for our employees. If it was a Christmas bonus or whatever, that's an explanation on why we didn't do it this year. I would like to see we tie in a bonus system for our state report card at each school. Again, it's about competition. I don't know what that would look like. It just depends on what level of funding we got. But off the top of my head, I see a bonus program where if a school's report card goes up, maybe everybody on that campus gets a, I don't know, $500 bonus. If the report card stays the same, then maybe they get a $250 bonus. I think that would go a long way with our employees to show, hey, we see what you're doing and we appreciate it. Now, the question I've got, well, what if the school's report card goes down? Well, it's all about competition, and it's about us making our schools as good as we can. So hopefully, if there's a couple schools that are not getting those bonuses, well, and everybody else is, maybe it makes us up our game across the district. So I would like to do that if possible. Again, I talked about the security guards, and here's the thing that people don't understand either: special education aides. You know, if it's noted in the IEP, we have to provide it. Well, again, that comes out of local money for the most part. We do get some federal money, but each aide is about $50,000. So if you have 10 students move in after the start of school year where you've already sent out all your allocations, and each one of them need an aide, that's $500,000. It's got to come from somewhere. Moving forward, again, that's half of one of these, right? So a lot of the planning, obviously I'm planning for worst case scenario. Here's a chart provided by Rice Advisory. Long story short, if I went to the bond market with any additional funding, basically for every meal is the way, so let me stop. Again, if the 7 meal tax passes, there's probably not enough there for me to go start massive construction. Now I can see renovations all day long. I can see renovations, but I also want people to understand what it would really take if you're talking about building all these new schools. For each mill, that basically gives you $13 million in project funds you can get a loan for. So the average cost of a high school is, right now, honestly, about $200 million. You can do the math there. It would take a substantial increase. We're not asking for that. I understand the economy's rough. I understand the price of goods are ridiculous. I understand when we go to the grocery store, instead of 2 bags of groceries costing $40 like they used to, it's $100. I get it. Again, I'm with you. I've got 5 kids, same deal. We all understand that struggle. We tried to factor all that into what we thought people would actually want to support. Overwhelmingly, I heard with the new tax, if you're going to do one, it needs to be countywide. It is. You need to be transparent on why you're asking for it. I hope people see we're solving that. It needs to benefit all kids. Again, we're doing that. And y'all asked for too much last time. Again, I'm not saying we did or didn't. I'm just telling you the feedback. That's how we got to where we are. Okay? All right, so what's next? And this is the last slide of this, so if you have any questions, I'll get to them in just a second. So what's next for Autauga County Schools? Look, we have to increase our student enrollment. We have to figure out ways to stop the number of people that are leaving. We have to figure out why people are leaving. I think we're working on all that. We're going to keep looking at policies and procedures on how we fix these things. I do see a need, and this is what's next as well. I talked about this early on. I feel like we've got secondary. I feel good about it. Our principals have really done a really good job on that. Obviously, some days better than others, but again, I feel pretty good where we're at with that. What we're seeing though is an alarming trend with our elementary students. We're seeing behaviors in our elementary kids that I'm being told has not happened before. And our code of conduct does kind of tie the principal's hands a little bit on what they can do. You will see an expansion of elementary education discipline. Same thing goes for the bus. Guys, we're overhauling our issues with the bus transporting issues with this new program. I hope that makes things better. I also need parents to understand that they've got to have talks with their kids because the behavior we're seeing on these buses is bad as well. You will see changes to the code of conduct with elementary education. You will see code of conduct changes with bus discipline. Bus discipline will be significantly increased on behaviors on the buses. So that's something we're going to look on. We got a big principal meeting on Monday. We're going to really look at a lot of that. Obviously, what's next? I'm trying to secure additional funding sources. We'll see how it plays out. And let me say this. I'm not trying to guilt anybody one way or the other. I was asked the other day by the news when it came out. They were like, well, what's going to be your reaction if it don't pass? I said, guys, the beauty of being in a democracy is if that decision comes to you guys, that's your will. If you say no, y'all've got what you need, well, I want to be transparent and tell you, I don't think the 14 school model continues. And if that's the decision that our citizens of Autauga County want, then it's my job to carry it out. Now, will I do everything in my power to keep that from happening? Yes, I hope people that know me knows that. But I'm also, part of my personality is I'm also going to non-emotionally tell you guys, hey, this is where we are. So as we try to secure funding sources, if the answer is no from Autauga County, that's fine. I'm not going to be upset about it. Okay, hey, that's the answer. It's my job to make it happen, and I will do everything I possibly can. But I also want people to understand the other side of that is, if I'm being shown by financial advisors and my CSFO, and if you lived here, you know we have some financial problems. If the answer is I have to change the model, then I have to change the model because I have to make payroll and I have to give kids what they need in terms of education. We're trying to continue to recruit the people that want to pour in here. I'll make no mistake about it. I think it matters more when you're here, when you live here, and I appreciate so much of you that stop me at ball fields and grocery stores and all that. It's very, very important to be able to have feedback, and I always welcome that, and I appreciate that more than you'll ever know. Lastly, we talked a lot about our strategic plan, not so much today, but we're going to really keep trying to improve our strategic plan. That's got to guide what we do as a system. So we're going to keep doing our best to hit our goals, to hit the needs of the students, to give our teachers what they need. And again, I hope you see today that we're not doing it in a way that parents won't know. We're trying to be transparent. We're trying to show you guys the reality where we are. So I think that's it. Let's see. Yep, that's about it. Ms. Thomas has got a laptop. Are there some questions over there?
There are.
Okay.
So we'll address a few of them. I will say real quick while we are doing that, the link to ask questions is in our Facebook event and it's also on our live YouTube stream. So are you ready, sir?
Yeah, can I get my water real quick?
You may. Alright, first question. Does the district have a plan to present a new bond vote for school construction?
Say it one more time.
Does the district have a plan to present a new bond vote for school construction?
Bond vote, I guess they're saying.
Referendum, I would assume.
Right now, I hope that presentation kind of answered some of that. I think I know where that's coming from. Previously, in the previous tax deal, there was a lot of tie-ins to buildings. Maybe that's what we're talking about. Right now, I don't feel comfortable saying with a $7 million increase that there's going to be enough there to start a massive construction project. Now, that being said, what I'm excited about with this in-district transfer policy is we are looking at that data, and if it shows a clear, hey, people don't want to go to this school, but they do want to go to this one, long-term, that gives us an idea on what we need to plan for. So in terms of just a massive building project, no, the $7 million plan at the moment, the way it was when we submitted it, is we're going to focus on our employees, we're going to focus on renovating as much as we can, and again, you will see some of this very soon because I'm using other dollars very soon to try to tackle some of these projects we've talked about. But in terms of just a capital plan with, hey, 8 meals are going to this school and this school, there's just not enough there with the current proposal. Does that make sense?
All right, given the growth of Prattville over the last 20 years, what is the district's plan to combat overcrowding issues?
Yes, a great question. The plan is it's in district transfer and track where people are wanting to go. It may mean long term. I know I just said there's not a plan as far as building, but if I'm looking at this and there's, I don't know, 300 families that want to move to a particular school and they're wanting to leave a particular school, well, as we're paying down this debt, that's what you will see from me. Long-term strategic plan is, this is where our people want to go. This is what they're wanting to see. Let's figure out a way to make it happen.
How long do we have to enroll our students? And I think that's probably an online returning student registration question.
Returning student, guys, all we're asking y'all to do is that first day paperwork. You're already enrolled at the base school. The messages you're probably getting through Parent Square are just reminders to get the first day paperwork finished. Worst case scenario, if you don't do it, you'll just have to fill them out first day. Now, I would like, this came up, this is good, it's live, y'all can see some of the thoughts are going through my brain. I would imagine the portal will still be open on the first day, but we would have some hard copies available too. Now, as far as, I do want to say this now, is it already on there when they log in, the little message pops up
Yes,
about,
about
okay, new family, I need everybody to understand this. New family enrollment is different than what it's ever been before. In the past, you went to the base school, and honestly, first day of school was a little chaotic. You had people trying to bring in families, and as a principal, I can tell you, every school in the district function like this. If the school year start on Wednesday, and I'm pretty sure next year does start on Wednesday, they would start enrolling kids the following Monday because the first 3 days of a school are chaotic. Now, that being said, we are telling parents when they log in to register their children, new families, there's a screen that pops up that clearly says, I don't remember the exact date, July 26th? How about that? If you don't have your paperwork in by then, I cannot promise you that you're going to be ready to go day one of school. So if you're a new family that's looking at this, or if you know somebody that's wanting to enroll newly their kid now, make sure they know that I feel very comfortable if they get everything in by the 26th, we'll be good to go day one of school. If they don't have it in by the 26th, guys, it's just, there's too much information coming in, and it's always been that way. And I think a lot of you that have been in the district know that every school across the country kind of operates that same way.
Does the district see an issue with losing public school enrollment with families sending their children to local private schools?
Well, I think that's a great question. Number one, I'll say it like this. It's my job to create a system and a school system where people want to stay, okay? Now, it's also very difficult when I meet with families or I see them at the ball field and they go, hey, the reason I'm pulling my kid from your system and going to XYZ is I just think it's ridiculous that the paint's flaking off from the ceiling, and I'm going, I agree. I'm trying to fix it. I think today's presentation hopefully answered some of the questions on what we're trying to do. Now, does it hurt? Yes, it does. There's no two ways around it. I am, and I may get a little animated here. I am very, very, very concerned with the long-term plan that is in place to provide public money to families to go to private schools. Now, I can't change that. That's state law and all that. Our answer, that's why I had to do the out-of-district transfer as well, because that same principle for them also helps us when a family comes in from out of district. So to answer the question, it does hurt, but I've got to solve why people are leaving. We can't make everybody happy, and I'll be the first to admit that. But you're going to see very soon, with the limited resources we have, everybody may not agree with the projects I'm about to do, but I have a list of long-term problems for our county, and I'm going to start checking them off one at a time. And if the State Department of Education says, hey, here's $8 million, and y'all can use it for whatever, I'm telling our families, it's going to go to improving education, it's going to go to improving what our teachers have in the classroom, it's going to go to improving facilities. That's my only option right now, and I hope when families see all the projects that we're about to start, I hope families see that, hey, even though they're limited to what they got, they're trying to solve some of these long-term issues. So I hope that answers the question. It's not good. It's not good for us when people leave. I know that, you know that, we all know that. It's about, well, anyway, it takes a substantial amount of money. Just remember this, for every 20 kids we lose, that's about one teacher unit that leaves with it. So, yeah, I'm concerned about it, but I'm more concerned with what do we have to do to show our families that we are trying to do the best we can. And, you know, that is one thing that keeps coming up. Well, your schools, y'all have an 83 on the report card. Why do you need additional funding? My challenge to this, and this is what I'm telling our employees, man, it's been a great year. Man, I wish you could be on our campuses. It's really a great year. But being okay is not okay, right? And our biggest hindrance for success right now is we've always done pretty well. But what people just don't see unless you're out on the road, unless you're looking at other districts and all that, is our hands are tied. Our hands are tied. Our solution right now for a teacher that does a great job in the classroom is, hey, I appreciate you, and I appreciate you so much. I need you to do my SGA. I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And I can't give you any additional supplements. Then go across the river or go across the highway over here, and you're picking up additional supplements for doing the same job. So what is that teacher going to do? Or that security guard, or who? What are they going to do? They're going to go, well, if I'm doing all that, I should get compensated for it, and I agree, and we lose them. We don't have the structure in place to be able to compete with that. That's why this presentation was what it was. Same deal with private schools, you know. Anyway, I'm not anti-private school by no means. It is a competition. We are in competition with private schools. We have to make our system better so we quit losing kids. We will do that one way or the other. I assure you we will.
Without an increase in funding, when is the earliest feasible time frame to be able to build an additional school in Prattville? Without funding.
Yeah, it kind of depends on what the scope is of the school. So, for example, if you're building a school that you're going to house, I don't know, let's say private intermediate holds 600 kids. I can tell you the cost of the kindergarten, which houses about, I want to say capacity 600. That cost is about $30 million once you get into it. So you scale that. You go, okay, so how much will a new high school cost? Well, in long term, I don't mind saying this. Yeah, I've got some plans on trying to build a new high school. We have to have those long-term plans, but what's the cost? You're looking at about $200 million to build a new high school the way it sits right now. Let me rephrase that, with 14 school model, okay? If there's a 14 school model and you keep everything the same, so when's the timeline on that? I've asked Rice Advisor to give me some idea on that. It can range anywhere from 5 to 10 years. Depends on how quick I can pay down debt. If there's no additional funding, again, I think we're okay for the next year or two. I'm just very concerned about 25, 26. The unknown of how are we going to get increased funding? The state, I caught some heat the other day online about it. They said, well, the State Department gave record educational budget. They did. And we never know what that's going to look like. So if they keep up that trend and they keep increasing funding, we can probably pay stuff down a little quicker. But as you know, and I know, there's a reason they meet yearly on the budget. They set it every year. It may get cut in half next year. You never know. So the increase in mills will help us project it out.
And this is our last question. So if you have a question you're waiting to answer to see if it's been a duplicate, I would tell you to submit that now. So, is there a possibility in the near future that the district will increase funding to music and art programs that are severely lacking?
Yeah, I'll tell you this right now. One thing I'm looking at is supplements and things like that, and there's band supplements. There's some other supplements, but in a lot of the things that our band directors and everybody else are theater. Let me pause and say this, okay? Your theater teachers, your department heads, your art classes, there's not a structure right now. There's not a way to get them additional funding at that level in terms of supplements, in terms of things like that. And I know the question is more about the program. I'm just starting with personnel, because if you don't have the person in your building that wants to do it, you can't start the program. I am working on a proposal right now that we can shift some things around to get a little funding to that, and hopefully that'll help start growing those programs. Now, we do fund different projects that come in. I know we were able to help out, a couple of choir, programs the other day with big trips they had. But it's just really case by case right now, in terms of what we have available in the leftover budget. I know I kind of got off track there. I hope that answers the question, but, we see the need. I'll say that. We see the need and we're trying to address it.
That is the last one, so I'll let you
That's it.
sign us off.
All right, well, just again, I appreciate you guys reaching out, and thank you for the great questions. You know, and again, I hope you see number one, that we're just trying to put the information out there. And again, if the public wants to see certain things, we're going to look at the data, and we're going to look at the in-district transfers. We're going to look at all the things that come to us. I promise you, we are trying to make long-term decisions. We have big decisions that are coming up. I've lived here all my life. A lot of you know my family. You know, my family has several educators. Look, this is home, and it hits different when it's home. I don't want people to take this presentation any other way other than this. I am trying to make as many long-term plans for this district as I possibly can. There's a plan where we have all 14 schools open. There's a plan where several of them close. There's a plan where, hey, if we can build a new Prattville High School, what does that look like for in town? You got to have a plan first. And, you know, we're looking at all that stuff. We're looking at the data as it comes in. Where do people really want to go to school? We're looking at all that. We just can't be afraid to have these kind of conversations. That's why I appreciate you guys logging in today. And I appreciate you reaching out, Ms. Thomas, asking for the presentation as well. Share it, use it, do whatever you need to do. I hope you've seen, I'll do my best to get back with you if you reach out, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Hope you have a great weekend.